Hello, fabulous superstar Aries. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of March 2025. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological month. If ever there was a remarkable astrological month, this really would be it. It isn't just that we have eclipse season, and it isn't just that we have a rare Venus retrograde season kicking into high gear, but it is in many ways the beginning of what I have said 2025. It is a taste. It is a taste of a world that we are going to delve into, dive into that much more once we get to 2026 and beyond. In many ways, that sense of what is coming, the world that we are co-creating together, well, it starts now. It starts this month. And for every one of us, as part of our own individual journeys, we might have our own processes, our own ways of understanding what lessons we're wrapping up, what lessons we're moving towards. And it is the eclipses this month that are going to help us in that. But it's also the fact that planets are on the move, including big planets that start moving into your sign, which makes this that much more a special time. In fact, for the collective and for you, there's a sense of coming out of some really long-term cycles that were stirring a lot within you on levels of soul, psyche, and spirit. A lot of that starts to feel like it changes now, and it's just the beginning. There is going to be this increased sense of focus on yourself, who you are, what matters to you most and first, and letting that sense of identity help you to start all kinds of sweeping brand new chapters in your life. I'm going to start with the eclipses because this is very special energy. And we have two eclipses this month, and it isn't just about the eclipses, it's what's happening around them that matters as well. This is a total lunar eclipse taking place in a part of the sky for you that has to do with your daily life. This can be your workplace, the people who surround you there. It can be places you frequent, but also the daily habits and rituals that guide your day, that bring some structure to your day as you move through your life. And that includes your health related habits as well. So what we have is a total lunar eclipse, which brings with it closure. That's what it suggests, is that it's like what you didn't realize, all of a sudden you do. And it might have been there looking at you this whole time, but you just weren't ready to see it. But now that you do see it and you do feel it, it's a game changer. This eclipse is happening across the sky from Saturn. So there is this sense of a power struggle or power game, perhaps with a client, customer, or coworker. And one of these people might leave, in some cases rather dramatically or suddenly, but it's almost like it's a consequence of what has been building for a while. We get Uranus speaking in harmony with this eclipse, and that brings with it a sense of positive change, especially for you. There's excitement of what now could be possible, the new and the next, with this ultimately fortunate closure that is taking place. And then we've got your ruling planet Mars speaking in supreme harmony with this eclipse, which suggests that whatever's taking place, you are enlivened by it, empowered by it, and you feel that as a result of what might seem like it has other people scattering, helps you to bring forward your very best very quickly now. And so this might show up in terms of what's happening in the workplace, the type of work you're doing, the people that you interact with regularly there. Like I said, the clients, customers, coworkers. There could be very sudden departures of one of these people, but you end up landing on top. Now, this could also be a sense of some health-related matter, finding a conclusion or a closure that you feel really good about. Maybe getting the right advice from a specialist could make all the difference, if that even applies. But outside of that, this could be you having a realization as to what habits are not serving you. And there might be one habit in particular that you make an adjustment to and start feeling a whole lot better very quickly now. Now, the day after this lunar eclipse, now we are entering into eclipse season, and that's the period of time between two eclipses because eclipses always come in pairs. And this is where the ancients believed that the veil between the worlds was especially thin. It becomes easier to recognize the spiritual lessons playing out. But we have this first eclipse on the 14th, and then on the 15th, we have Mercury going retrograde. And what makes this retrograde special is, look, on the one hand, it's in your sign. On another, it's going to be this Mercury retrograde that's going to happen in your sign and the sign before yours. But here's the thing. It is going to be towards the end of the month that we are going to have a solar eclipse. That solar eclipse is in your sign. It is a big moment of 2025 for the Aries out there, but this Mercury standing still, starting to go retro, happens at the exact same spot in the sky that just 2 weeks later we are set to have that solar eclipse in your sign. Whatever's happening around the 15th of this month and the days that surround it in some way is going to connect you to what's happening around the 29th of this month when we have that solar eclipse in your sign. Now, solar eclipses in one's own sign is a very big deal. And I always give some examples that I've seen over the years of people who have an eclipse in their sign and it ends up being a game changer. This is a solar eclipse, which means a new perspective. But in many ways, yes, it could be a sense of surprise. Like all of a sudden you see yourself differently. There could be very sudden brand new beginnings that take place for you now. But it's going to be connected to an understanding of who you know yourself to be, what matters to you most and first. That's what's seen a whole new way. That's what starts a brand new chapter. Whereas the lunar eclipse is about how life actually changes, your habits and the spaces you find yourself in. It is a very different thing to say, my work is different versus my life is different, or more importantly, I am different. That change is so fundamental and it has the potential to change just about anything. But you're going to get glimpses into just what those changes might be in the middle of the month, in particular with that Mercury standing still right at the eclipse point. And that suggests to me that whatever feels like it is a brand new beginning now, a new understanding of self, it isn't brand spanking new. It is in some ways a reminder, a realignment. And the way that eclipses work is if you are someone who strives to stay aware of your own learning, of your own growth, and has the intention to live true to yourself, wants to consistently align yourself with a higher, more loving vision for your life, well, eclipses can be a time when there's some adjustment, but ultimately it just feels like this natural step, even if it comes with more emotion. However, if you are a person who doesn't necessarily find it easy to just listen, but rather, like many in Aries, to go out there and go for what you want and align with what you want, and has that sense of wanting to create a path and wanting the universe to be in tow, well, that's when those moments of realignment with a higher, more loving vision for your life, they can be that much more dramatic. And so I have seen huge things take place for people when they have an eclipse in their sign. I've seen lots of people end certain relationships. Lots of people I've seen over the years, they stopped, substance usage. I've seen that as well. I've seen a few people over the years who have an eclipse in their sign and maybe they go vegetarian or they go vegan. And I remember one person had an eclipse in their sign, and after 10 years of being vegan, they started eating meat again. And the thing to remember with that is it isn't about the diet, right? It isn't about what you're actually eating, though the eclipse that happens in the middle of the month, that can speak to how you understand your eating habits and how that connects you to some truth about how you want to live and what you feel is the right way to live. Your answers are going to be uniquely your own, but that eclipse at the end of the month in your sign is about identity. And from there, it is a very different motivation because it becomes about being true to yourself and being you as you come to know who you are now differently in some way, and you feel ready to start some brand new chapters. This eclipse is speaking in harmony with Pluto. There is a lot of power, a lot of focus, a lot of purpose that is available to you at this time. Now, if you are an Aries who has a birthday right around the end of this month, this is energy that's going to be with you all year. And even if you were born in the very first days of April as well, well, this will be a year that is filled with sudden, bright, new chapters and a sense of adjustment as to a more truer version of yourself, a different version of yourself than you knew before. But there's action behind it. There's a sense of authenticity behind it. But really, all Aries are going to benefit from this eclipse at this time that happens late in the month. Remember, pay attention to what's happening mid-month. That Mercury going retro right on the eclipse point is a moment of nothing less than prophecy. It is some insight. It is some understanding that you may not realize how significant it is in the moment, but when you see it differently at the end of the month, you realize how it's what happens mid-month that ultimately connects you to a brand new chapter of self. Jupiter is also speaking in harmony with this eclipse, so there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of hope at this time, and there's belief that whatever is beginning again, it's empowering and it's exciting as well. Now, the huge news that I do want to tell you, though, is that, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this, I got to talk about this, and that is the fact that we are going to get a taste of Neptune in your sign now. It is at the very end of the month that Neptune steps into your sign. Is going to be here right until about October 22nd, at which time Neptune will retrograde out, and then next year, just in time for Valentine's Day, we are going to have Neptune back in your sign for a nice long stay of about 13 years. This is a once in a lifetime transit. You're going to get a taste of it now and how this energy is set to be significant for you, is set to change you in important ways. I did speak about this energy in the Decade Ahead video horoscope over in the Superstar space and on my website. Those links are below. But of course, with all the energies, I will be here to talk about them every step of the way. So let's talk about Neptune in your sign. This is a whole new understanding of what it is to be enlightened, what it is to see your own will as a spiritual force. And it is an imaginative, creative, and mystical energy that visits you at this time. This is an energy of some extreme. So for some Aries, it might feel like there's some sense of a transition or maybe even losses as well. But it is ultimately a part of the cleansing that could be taking place for you as part of ultimately connecting you more powerfully to source and understanding what your relationship to source is going to be going forward from here. You're not going to have the final answers. In fact, when we have a Neptune transit, very often in the midst of it, things aren't as clear. We need to have a little bit of space before we can really understand what the change or transition or the sense of one thing ending, but faith that there's more coming. What was that really about for us? Well, that will be more fully revealed in the fullness of time. I think you'll get to see what that is for you, what you start feeling at the end of this month when we get to the end of the year. That is when you may very likely see what takes place between the 30th of March and the 22nd of October differently enough so that next year when Neptune returns to your sign, you'll be able to understand more about how you want to use those energies to your advantage. But for all that, this is a remarkable window. It is you feeling different, feeling meaning, feeling purpose, maybe even feeling very swept up in emotion, in a spiritual experience that might find you. So be sure that you are patient with yourself. It's not something to be made sense of necessarily. It's something to feel and to trust, knowing that whatever you might be feeling, the emotion, the mystical experiences that could find you that may not make a lot of sense to other people are ultimately part of your movement towards a more richer experience of your life and of yourself. Where it comes to matters of love, as soon as we start this month, Venus goes retro. Venus goes retro at the start of the month in your sign, and it will be towards the end of the month, at the very end of the month, that Venus will leave your sign. But throughout this month, we're going to have that Venus, and then Venus will return to your sign once direct after the middle of April. The return to your sign happens in May. And again, I'll be here to talk about it every step of the way. There should be Venus retrograde specials up in the superstar space on my website, nadiyashah.com, links below. But having said that, this moment of Venus retrograde is incredibly significant. Whenever it is that a planet is retro, is going retro, it is closer to the earth than it might otherwise be. Its symbolism becomes that much more heightened. And with Venus, it tends to represent a passionate time. Now, this is Venus in Aries, already so passionate, so love at first sight energy. And then it's your sign as well. So it's like you are holding this energy that much closer. And it is you that is likely going to be a magnet to experiences that are going to, in one way or another, make their mark. When I talk about karmic experiences, what I mean is their time has come. And I mean that they are experiences that shift you, stay with you, help you in some way to reach a deeper understanding. And with Venus, ultimately help align you with greater love than you've known before and greater wisdom as well. Venus ultimately is a blessing, but with Venus retrograde, you really don't want to go in the direction of making huge changes to your unique expression of your unique beauty, whatever that might be. However you celebrate that, that's great. Enjoy it. Do what feels right for you to do, but just know that what seems like a really good idea with Venus retrograde looks a whole lot different when Venus goes direct. And especially if it's something that you hope has results that last, that's really where you want to be careful with things like tattoos or cosmetic procedures, because having a Venus retrograde, especially in your sign, means that in some way you may have to redo or refine whatever it is that takes place now. There might be a desire to undo whatever takes place now as well. So pace yourself and be yourself. You know, I like to say that. The little regular routine stuff, no problem there. The stuff that you always do, but it's when you're going in all kinds of new directions, trying new things, throwing out your entire wardrobe, bringing in a whole other color scheme. I talk about my own story in the weekly video for the last week of February, so you may want to check that out, where I talked about that. Yeah, stuff like that can happen, but that's the stuff you want to be careful with. But outside of that, Venus is also representative of money, how you spend it, how you understand prosperity. You could go way overboard with that. And then Venus is goddess of love, and that's you, again, being a magnet to romantic experiences that leave an impression. Now, Venus retrograde can be a notorious time for bringing people from the past back into the picture in some way. They pop up again, sometimes by happenstance, by synchronicity. Sometimes it's more intentional than that. But it really is so that you get another look at what was before, and you get to decide if it worked for you, what worked, what didn't, why it didn't work, where it was actually good that it didn't work, or where it is perhaps you want to give something another chance. It is a chance to look again, maybe be nostalgic, but when Venus officially does go direct next month, and especially once Venus re-enters your sign in May, you just might see whatever seems like a really good idea in love now very differently. So it might not be the best time to sort of toss it to the will of the winds and get hitched. Somebody new you meet, they're so much like somebody you used to know way back in the day, and you swear that this is love. You're not going to let this one get away. And so you go to Vegas, and then it gets real, and then it looks different. Venus goes direct, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, that's who you are. These are the types of experiences that become possible with Venus retrograde in such an impulsive energy for Venus to be in, like your sign, the sign of Aries. But having said that, for those of you open to meeting someone new, there's such a desire for love, for passion. It may feel very strong for you now, and that could have you connecting with people, in some cases, very quickly. So, I like to say, pace yourself and be yourself. You are going to want to remember that. But, I think about how we have these really passionate, sultry moments set to take place, especially right around the 21st of this month. That is when Venus will connect in harmony with Pluto. This is the second of 3 connections these planets are going to make as part of the larger Venus retrograde season. And it is now, as this takes place, that your own sense of desire for intensity, it's a sultry energy that will have you taking chances or being more open to romantic love in a way that might even take you by surprise. For those of you just starting to date someone, whether with this person or someone else, you're on a pathway towards learning about love in one way or another. And what you think it is during a retrograde and what it ends up being could be very different. It could be better, but it could just be really different. So you are going to want to pace yourself, but things can move very quickly with Venus retrograde. They get super passionate and super immersed, especially with energies like this and a Venus retrograde in your sign. Now, outside of that, if it feels like it's not really moving forward with this person, there might be somebody else new that you meet now, and it feels like it has this will of its own until we get to the moments of pause that are coming up for you next month. I'll be here to talk about it every step of the way. And for those of you in an established bond, the overwhelming majority are going to find this a time of increased love and bonding and a type of emotional intimacy that fuels a deep rootedness of commitment that the two of you share. But if it is that you have felt for a while that you might not be in the right relationship for you, a lot of that discontent might stir, especially right around the 21st of March, as part of figuring out what you might want to do next. But remember, what seems one way during the retrograde could look a whole other way once Venus goes direct next month, and especially once Venus re-enters your sign in May. That's when I think whatever's happening now might look different to you, and that's when you'll understand more clearly what choices you want to make next. What I love about this month for you, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. It is a big month. It is significant. Eclipses, planets changing directions, but also Neptune entering your sign. Neptune moving through your sign is pretty much a once in a lifetime transit. Neptune takes 160 years to go all the way around the zodiac, which means over the course of any 160-year period, each sign will get a chance to host Neptune. And this is your chance. You're getting a taste of it now. You'll dive into it much more fully next year. But this is a major new cycle of your life that you're just going to start to glimpse now. And it is defined by an inner mystic waking up. And there are times when it is spiritual insight and wisdom, but there are also those who might find themselves getting very carried away, very caught up in what ultimately is escapism that may not necessarily be as healing as you think it is in a given moment. So pace yourself and be yourself. I like to say that. That's something I'm going to have to remind you. That's hard for an Aries to do anyways, but just know that just when it seems like you know the truth, you've had the experience, you've transcended, it might just be that You're meant to understand that feeling with greater nuance, and you'll get those opportunities to do that as well. And so stay open to possibility. You are, as we all are, on a spiritual journey. It's just that for you, it's about to become a whole lot more obvious. Well, thank you so much for watching. You can get a video like this each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month with Choose Your Membership rate at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes for each and every sign. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com or thefutureismagical.com. Links in the description below. And new programs are starting this month over at synchronicityuniversity.com as we're finishing off February. You can still choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from some of the most celebrated astrologers alive today. Learn more and sign up now. Links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. It'll be a great month. Enjoy.